Hello, welcome back to Chapter 13, Section 2, Angles of Rotation. For problems 10 through 17, we're going to find the measure of the reference angle. So let's remember what we need for the reference angle. First of all, it has to be acute, which means that whatever the reference angle is, which we're using theta as the angle of rotation, so I'm going to use another Greek letter, and don't panic over that. I just can't call it the same thing, all right? Angle phi has to be between 0 and 90 degrees. No negatives, and can't be bigger than 90 degrees. And the other thing is that it uses, as one of its sides, has to use the x-axis, not the y-axis. So remember that. Okay, so let's talk about 95. So what I'm going to do, and I didn't put the grids in when I printed these like I normally do. I'm just going to sketch it. I'm going to sketch the angle of rotation, and then we're going to reason out what the the reference angle is, right? So 95 degrees. 95 degrees is going to go 5 degrees past 90. And I'm not using a protractor, but you can imagine. Now, one thing that happens, notice, and I did this on purpose, notice that I said it's 5 degrees past 90. That's just to allow me to draw it. That is not the reference angle. The reference angle is not from the terminal side to the y-axis. It's from the terminal side to the x-axis. So my reference angle is this part. So now I'm going to reason out what I need to do here. I'm not going to use a protractor or anything. I didn't even draw it accurately. If I go all the way to this part of the x-axis, that's 180. So I'm just going to subtract out the 95. The other way of thinking about it is I said I need to go 5 degrees more. Well, I need to go 85 degrees to get to that x-axis. So however you do it, one way you can do it is 180 subtract 95. Or you can think about just this quadrant as 90. And again, this is not an algorithm, we're reasoning. You can think of just this quadrant as 90 degrees, representing 90 degrees, and I've already used up 5. Either way, I'm going to get 85 degrees. That's my reference angle. And the 85 degrees is acute, it's less than 90, and I'm using the angle that's between this part of the x-axis and the terminal side. Let's look at number 11. So let's sketch this. Negative 250 degrees is going to go negative 90, negative 180, and if I keep going, I get to negative 270, so I'm going to pull up a little short. That's my angle of rotation. Now my reference angle has to be positive, it has to be less than 90, and it has to use the x-axis. So again, this is the x-axis. So I'm not going to say, oh, it's 20 degrees. If I went 20 more degrees, I would get to the y-axis. That is not the reference angle. This is the reference angle. And I can think of it as, even though, and again, the negative tells me I went in the clockwise direction, right? So I can think of it as 250 without thinking about the direction, subtracting out the 180 that I did. That meant that I went, switch over to black, that meant that I went 70 more degrees. All right. So again, we're reasoning this out. It's not necessarily, in the past I've tried to do an algorithm, like if it's this, do this, if it's that, subtract this. And in my experience, that kind of confuses more people than it helps. I can provide it to you if you want, ask me in class. But I'd really prefer that you guys actually just think about it. After you draw it, I'm saying what's the angle right here? I know that the extra part right here would be 20 degrees, so 90 subtract 20 is going to give me 70. Or I know that I went 250 degrees. I just went negative 250, which tells me I went counterclockwise. Again, the negative just tells me the direction. I could take the absolute value of it, which gives me the magnitude of it, which tells me how far I went. Okay, the negative just tells me the direction that I went. So if I think I went 250 degrees, that means I went 70 degrees past the 180. That's all. 230. So here's 90, 180, and 230 is going to be somewhere right here. So to think about this is how far past it did I go? How far past the 180 did I go? And it looks like 230 subtract the 180 is going to give me 50 degrees. So my reference angle is 50 degrees. For number 13, I've got negative 160. That's going to go like that. I need to go 20 more degrees in the negative direction to get to, see if I got room here. I didn't, but I need to go 20 more degrees to get to the y-axis. So my reference angle is 20 degrees. And as always, pause and rewind if you need to see any of this again. I'm always conscious of that. Let's do a few more. 345. That's almost completely all the way around. So 345 is going to be like over here someplace with a rotation like this. So what I need to do is I need to figure out how much further you need to go to get back to the x-axis. Remember, it's always the x-axis. I'm not going to go to the y-axis, and I'm not going to go over here because I want it to be acute. So I can think, well, how much further would I go? That's just going to be 360, the difference between 360 and 345. So my reference angle will be 15 degrees. This is 15 degrees. Number 15. Negative 130 is going to end up over here someplace. So the negative 130 degrees with the negative tells me I'm going to go clockwise. I went 90 and I went an extra 40. How much further would I need to go to get to 180? This angle right here is going to be 50 degrees. Now again, I'm going to keep repeating this. The negative just tells me I'm going to go the direction. Reference angles do not have direction. That's why we put arrows on both ends. It just says like how far it's opening up. Okay? So there's no direction there. So be mindful of that. Number 16, believe it or not, number 16 and number 14 have something similar, because negative 15 degrees is coterminal with 345 degrees. So the reference angle is going to be the positive angle measurement from here to here. Again, no direction. So the angle of rotation, the reference angle is 15 degrees. And finally, 220 degrees in the positive direction is going to go 90, 180, and a little bit more. How much further past 180 degrees did it get? What's the angle right here? So I'm going to take 220 and subtract 180. My angle of rotation, I keep saying that, my reference angle is 40 degrees. All right, we will see you in the next video.